Sometimes the universe has to close every door before you finally open your own. Liezl's retrenchment wasn't the end of a story.
First wanted to bump my position from a manager to just a supervisor, and I just thought, oh my word, how is this going to work?
With entrepreneurship, you have to take risks.
Yeah.
And you can't just, like you said, keep your money, because without giving that money out, you can't expand.
You got to hold on to it. Yeah, otherwise you will go nowhere.
The employee mindset is real. Liezl's honesty about still feeling like she needs permission to rest is something every entrepreneur needs to hear and work through.
More friends ask me, what's new in your life? I'm like, nothing. Work.
She didn't plan to become an entrepreneur. She was pushed into it by circumstances beyond her control. But what she did with that push, the courage, the creativity, the consistency, that was entirely her own. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the Confident Alchemist podcast, where bold women take the brave leap to build businesses and lives they deserve. I'm Debbie, and today I have someone with me whose story proves that sometimes the universe has to force your hand before you take the leap you were always meant to take. I'm here with Liezl de Bruyn, the founder of Keik Bakery, one of Pretoria's most beloved dessert bars. And her journey from five-star hotel pastry chef to dessert bar owner is one of the most honest, relatable, and genuinely inspiring stories I've had the privilege of sharing on this podcast. Liezl matriculated in 2009 and went straight into the International Hotel School to study culinary arts, specializing in pastry, at a time when dedicated pastry programs were rare in South Africa. She completed a 3-year internship in five-star hotels while studying, which meant by the time she graduated, she already had 3 years of real industry experience under her belt. She spent the next decade working her work through hotels, restaurants, and bistros, eventually moving into managerial positions. She was good at what she did. She was building a career. And then COVID happened. Liezl got retrenched. And as devastated as that sounds, she'll be the first to tell you it was a blessing in disguise. Because for the first time, she had the valid reason not to immediately look for another job. She had savings set aside for an overseas trip. That was cancelled. She had a 1-bedroom apartment. And she had a passion for baking that had been awaiting for exactly this moment. Today, Keik Bakery is a proud South African dessert bar, specializing in individually baked desserts, mini cakes, brownies, tarts, and sweet treats, alongside celebration cakes and cake decoration workshops. They use locally sourced ingredients, make everything from scratch, and have grown from a 1-bedroom apartment operation to a physical store with an employed baker. As someone who also been pushed out of her comfort zone before I took my own leap, I deeply understand Liezl's story. Sometimes the retrenchment, the crisis, the forced change is exactly the greatest gift you'll ever receive. Liezl, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Liezl, you spent a decade building a career in hospitality, 5-star hotels, restaurants, managerial positions. And then COVID hit and you got retrenched. You've called it a blessing in disguise. How did you go from devastated to determined? And do you think that you have taken the leap without that push?
So going from devastated to determined, I actually wanted to start in 2018 already, but I was too scared. So then I took a new job instead, which was in 2018, and a year from then, that's when COVID happened, and I just let go of the whole Keik Bakery plan. But then when COVID hit, I was like, oh my word, I can go back. I can pursue this plan. As much as my parents were the front row of my sport team, my brother was like actually the main person that called me that day, and he said, the day they would retrenched me, and that first wanted to bump my position from a manager to just a supervisor, and I just thought, oh my word, how is this going to work? And my brother said, no, start your business, you can do it. And just having that support team, knowing, okay, these people believe in me, so I can go for this. And then the whole environment was created to not worry about looking for a job. It sounds terrible, but the industry was crashing. And so I started baking from my home. By God's grace, it works. As much as I do business, I can't really explain to this day how it's actually working, but it is. But yeah, that was wonderful. The opportunity that came, just go full blown for it. And like you said, with the financials that was available because of a holiday I saved up, and yeah, just started small and not overthink it.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And like you said, sometimes a crisis like a COVID is actually the perfect launch pad to actually push yourself out and actually start that business.
Definitely, because I always wonder if COVID did not happen, to get back to that question, I don't know if I would have done it, but I do know in my heart that God would have navigated another avenue for me to pursue this, because I do believe that it's a gift from God that I can do Keik Bakery. So I do believe somehow it would have happened, but I know it wouldn't have been me. I was a bit of a scaredy cat back then.
Very nice. Keik Bakery has grown from a one-bedroom apartment operation to a physical store with your first employed baker. That's a significant journey. But you've also been honest about a rock-bottom moment, having to suddenly vacate a rented kitchen space while simultaneously losing a major client. How did you navigate that crisis? And how did it end up become another turning point in your industry?
Such a good question. So thinking back to that time, I think it was 3 years ago, actually. And back then, there were so many other things that took place that I actually also built up enough capital to finally buy my own equipment. But it was all about taking risk. I always held on to my finances and saying, no, don't use it. But at that moment, which was my another COVID push, I want to say, to finally step in and buy my own equipment. And I'm talking about the larger stuff. So I still rented a small space, not like a professional setup. It was a garage, but it was great. It helped. And once we bought all of our, like the oven and the mixers and, the big things, and we could actually settle into that. So it was like little steps that we took to get to where we are today. And that also created more opportunity, because I think I was there for 2 years before I opened the shop. And that's when I had the opportunity to do the workshops. And, I had the space to do that. And then that created that whole new idea of maybe I should have a shop, which was, it started in those 2 years, or let's say the last year of that garage phase. Because I personally also didn't think I would open a shop. It wasn't the plan.
It was beautiful. And something you mentioned that's very important is for people to understand that with entrepreneurship, you have to take sometimes risks.
Yeah.
And you can't just, like you said, keep your money, because without giving that money out, you can't expand.
You've got to hold on to it.
Yes.
Yeah, otherwise you will go nowhere.
Alongside your dessert bar and celebration cakes, you run cake decorating workshops. And you said that the heart behind them goes far behind just decorating. You want to create a space where people feel less alone, where they can switch off from everyday life. Where did that vision for community come from? And what do you see happening in people when they actually walk into one of your workshops?
That makes me very excited. So it runs in my blood. I just have this natural thing of bringing people together wherever I go, not just business. It's more about who I am and something of me that's poured into the business. And I really love the idea that I can bring that into business and not just have business and me like separately. But yeah, I just love bringing people together. And I think that has to do with the fact that many years ago, when I was still full-time employed, I moved a lot with all the opportunities. And that meant I was in a new environment many times.
Yes.
And that's when I realized community is super important. And we can become so alone in today's life. And that's where I got my tools of how to create community. And now I can use that in Keik Bakery. And the funny part is then I love this. And just hear me out. I don't want people to clean after themselves in my shop. But when we do workshops, people feel so comfortable. They actually start packing up the table when they're done, and they want to help me pack up. And I'm like, listen, you're being served here. You don't go to Mug and Bean and clean your own table, but at Keik Bakery, we just create this family environment, and they feel like they're at home.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I love that. But I don't want them to clean up themselves.
And something you mentioned is that you actually bring part of yourself into the business. And I always teach all my clients is the authenticity is your greatest asset that you can have in a business.
I agree. It just keeps it real.
You've been incredibly honest about something that I think so many entrepreneurs relate to. You became completely consumed by work. And you still sometimes carry what you call the employee mindset, feeling like you need to report to someone or that you'll get in trouble if you slow down. How are you working through that? And what has letting you to rest actually done for your business?
It all comes down to self-discipline, definitely. And I'm still learning that. And I probably will forever. Because as your business grows, it's going to be busy. You have to find a way to balance it. But currently, I'm trying to be self-disciplined by doing my admin during work hours, if I can say that. Not 100% successful there, getting there. But I think the fact that I live on my own also, like I'm so comfortable to go home and then put on a movie, make a coffee, and then do admin. But I realize I shouldn't be doing that. It's my free time, but it doesn't mean I have to do admin now. So I'm still working on that, but I'm getting it right a bit more each week, I want to say. So self-discipline is very important to decide, like, how am I going to run this, to actually create working hours for yourself. We actually still have to do that. Otherwise we just end up working. And I found myself, especially last year when we opened the shop, I was stuck in that wheel. I was just working, and I realized the more friends ask me, what's new in your life, I'm like, nothing. Gosh, work. Something crazy that happened in the shop, maybe. So that's when I realized, wait, we need to do something about this. And it's something for myself to figure out. I mean, no one else can do it for me. So it's very important. Yeah.
You have big dreams. More Keik Bakery dessert bars around Pretoria and beyond. But you've also shared something that goes deeper than expansion. You want to create a healthier, more supportive work environment for hospitality employees. In an industry known for burnout, depression, and anxiety, that's a powerful mission. What does that vision look like in practice? And what is your most important advice for someone considering entrepreneurship?
So this is actually because it happened to me in the industry. There was always a guilt trip when you take your off days or when you're really sick. I remember there was a time I was so sick and I couldn't even see. I was so bad. And when I think back to that time, I think it's so terrible to let someone go through that physically. So with that, in my business, first of all, I want to create an environment where when it's your off day, you are off and you rest. When you're ill, you take your time off and you go heal and you take care of yourself. I make sure that we take lunch. It's a very important thing because especially in our industry, and it's ironic, we work with food, but we don't eat. Exactly. And I make sure we do. So even if it's 2 o'clock and not 12 o'clock, like the norm would be, I just make sure that's what we're going to do.
Okay.
And my heart is also to treat that, or to create that culture in Keik Bakery so that the people, once that work for me, if they ever step into a managerial position or open their own business, that they also create that culture. So we can, create a new norm. Because it's terrible. There are many places. There's this terrible saying that, or a joke, actually, it goes around in the industry, and it's terrible. It's this conversation between the head chef and a chef employee. And it says, the employee calls in and he says, "Chef, I'm not feeling well, I won't be coming in." And then the chef replies and he says, "Well, are you in hospital?" And then the employee says, "No, I'm just not feeling well." And then the chef says, "I'll see you when your shift starts." So it's like you almost have to be half dead before you don't have to come in. And that's a terrible culture that I don't know why, I don't know where, but that's how it goes. And that leads to burnout, depression, anxiety, addiction. And it's terrible. And we weren't created to live like that. So I don't want to create that. And I want to build a and a space where we carry that over
that's beautiful.
to the future. Yeah.
Good. Any advice for new entrepreneurs?
Yeah, go for it. That's the idea is, or the point is to not wait for perfection. If I did wait for perfection, especially with my salary as a chef back then, I would never have done it. So just go for it. Start small. It's a humble process as well. I mean, I started in a very small 1-bedroom apartment under a blue gazebo as camp master. Did really like Floy Markie markets, and built from that. And yeah, like also just I always say check your heart. Make sure it's what you really want to do. Because it's in my industry, there's a lot of people that say I want a bakery too. Go check your heart and make sure you want to do that truly. Because it's an investment. And also make sure you have a good support system, whether it's friends or family, just at least 2 people. Okay, 2 people. Yeah, that's important.
Liezl, thank you for sharing your journey with us and for the reminder that sometimes the thing that feels like the end is actually the most delicious beginning.
Indeed.
Here's what strikes me most about Liezl's story. She didn't plan to become an entrepreneur. She was pushed into it by circumstances beyond her control. But what she did with that push, the courage, the creativity, the consistency, that was entirely her own. 4 powerful lessons from this conversation. First, sometimes the universe has to force your hand. Liezl's retrenchment wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning of her best chapter. Second, rock bottom moments can become turning points when you choose to invest rather than retreat. Losing a kitchen space and a major client in the same season could have ended Keik Bakery. Instead, it made it stronger. Third, business can be about so much more than product. Liezl's workshop aren't just about cake decorating. They're about community, connection, and creating space for people to feel less alone. Fourth, the employee mindset is real, and it takes intentional work to shed it. Liezl's honesty about still feeling like she needs permission to rest is something every entrepreneur needs to hear and work through. If you're in the Pretoria area and you haven't experienced Keik Bakery yet, the brownies, the mini cakes, the celebration cakes, you are missing out. And if you want a unique experience, book one of Liezl's cake decorating workshops. You leave with more than just a decorated cake. Send me a message and tell me about a retrenchment, a crisis, or a forced change in your life that ended up being a blessing in disguise. What's your version of Liezl's COVID retrenchment that led to something better? Remember what Liezl showed us today, that your greatest business might be born from your greatest setback, that the savings meant for one dream might fund another better one, and that sometimes the universe has to close every door before you finally open your own. Your Keik Bakery is waiting to be born. The question is, are you ready to start baking? Thank you for listening, beautiful souls. See you next week for another dose of truth, boldness, and transformation.